At the start of this channel, I did a video on poverty habits, which are a thing associated with obesity and lack of health. And it remains the case, and is of course even worse now that 5 years have passed, or 4 years have passed since I made that first video, that poverty habits go hand in hand with obesity, with heart disease, with diabetes, which is why you see in places like Walmart or any sort of discount bargain bin stores people who are majorly overweight. I don't mean carrying a little junk in the trunk. I mean they're way overweight. You see poverty. You can tell by their clothes and by their vehicles, if you can see them, that they are a whole bunch of people to a house because they can't afford much. And as a result, they eat terribly. So I'm sitting outside just across from one of my grocery stores waiting for somebody, and I decided to pop out a video, since apparently these are among the better I have in terms of watch time. But that got me thinking about how much of a problem this is, and about how little it is in where I'm living. I'm out here in Kingwood right now, and I have a little place here. It's all white, wealthy, well-to-do, affluent people. And when you look at the kids of all of these families, you see that they are nice, little privileged kids. They're thin little white girls and boys, and they have on their jerseys and their football school mascot looking uniforms with the, proud, on the cars they have the proud parent of the elementary school, proud parent of Kingwood High School student. I find it repugnant, but it's something that I cannot help each and every day notice when I drive to work from here. It's the craziest thing, because you will see that these kids are so much thinner than the kids in the inner city, which is not far from here. Humble, Texas is known for being one of the highest crime rates of Texas. It's second only to Belle Meade, which is by Waco, or as people joke about it, Wacko, because of the violent crimes, sexual crimes, and hardcore crimes like armed robbery and things like that. Local residents tend to dispute it, but it's all the same. But when you go and you look at people's lives and you see the amount of hardship they have, you find that all of these things go hand in hand. You see poverty, you see bad health. It's not a coincidence that in the South here, for those of you who are well-traveled and who know the South versus the North, you know that one of the things that they do here in the South is they have sweet, sweet, sweet tea. If you go to places like Alabama or Mississippi or Texas, the tea is overkill sweet. I like it like that. And look at my history. I was once really obese. But that's a thing of the South, and it's a thing of poverty. If you go up north, they don't even use sugar in their tea. Or they might use a little, you can't even really taste it. Again, level of dependence on poverty. Grease is one of the ways that cheap, poor people get their calories. They get sugar, sweet tea, and white breads, and then they do lard, stuffed fried chicken. All of these churches out here still have all of these old people, and they're red-faced, splotchy. You can see the liver spots on them, these old people, and they are fried chicken eating, sausage eating people. And, each one of them strokes out, and they never correlate the issue of how they eat with, how they live. Of course, you can sit here and debate how much it is, but one thing you can't debate is you can see in the South the level of diet and how it plays in. You go to the North, you go to Maine, you go to Minnesota, sure, there's fast food and there are inner cities, but a lot of these places have fish, chips, and soups. Well, anybody knows that chips spike your blood sugar a lot less than a lot of foods, even though they're not healthy. That's the worst. Fish, chips, and soup aren't that bad compared to the average American diet. But it's connected to what is called the challenge of life theory. And this was proposed, I guess, about somewhere in the 1980s, that the further you are north or south from the equator, the harder life is. It gets colder, and therefore you have to be more instrumental and smarter to survive. But you have people along the Bible Belt, as they call it, who choose to eat junk. And so there are literally places that I go into if I'm getting off work late and H-E-B is closed, or Kroger, my place of normal shopping, is closed, the Super Kroger here. I'll go to Walmart, and every single time I am there, I walk in the door and I immediately see usually people of color, or just people who are predominantly white, but you can tell they have a problem with meth and drugs. You can tell they are very malnourished. They have marks on their arms from hallucinating drug use, and they're picking on themselves, scratching on themselves. Their limbs, on the ones that are obese, are cankly and droopy, and it's so much so that it's completely off-putting. And I used to not notice it, but now I notice it all the time. And you go into any of the Walmart locations, the Humble locations here, you'll definitely see the difference. And you look at their baskets. What do their baskets have in them? Ho-Hos, ding-dongs, Cheez-Its, cupcakes, deli, more white bread, and then what they do have by way of flesh food is fried stuff. Processed fried stuff. So it's not just doing stuff that is marginally unhealthy like most people do, and on a normal basis. Normally these families here in Kingwood eat pork chops and fried stuff, but they do it maybe twice a week. They don't do it every night. They don't get and eat straight from a jar of simulated processed peanut butter and jelly made by Goober Grape. I don't know what they are, but we've all seen them in the stores. Well, I can look at any basket, and God Almighty, there's not one thing in there that you would make a meal out of. And one of the things on this channel is the premise that anything you eat on OMAD, you want to be able to make a meal out of, which is anything that is not pure junk. So if you set out to say, I'm going to eat what everybody else has on OMAD, you can do that, provided what you have is not pure sugar. Because if you eat just pure sugar for your OMAD meal, if you go to the gas station and you get a hot dog and Cheez-Its and Funyuns and candy bars, you will be hungry not 1 hour later. And going 23 hours without food on something like gas station food is pretty hard to scale for even people who are really big into fasting and being hungry. But of course, there's a reason for that. Your body starts producing insulin. You start getting insulin spikes when you eat junky food. The processed food combines proteins, carbs, and fats, which I've talked about before, make it so hard on your body by way of blood sugar spikes. So you get harder and higher blood sugar spikes when you eat stuff like pizza, when you eat stuff like Chinese food. You go and you eat it, and then you feel just yucky, even though it's good. You feel yucky because it's bad. But all of this, all of what I've said here, the bad food choices, the lack of education, the lack of hope, the lack of money, all of this connects. You already kind of knew that if you've heard me talk on this channel about it, either in the live streams or on another video. But the real problem is all of us are affected by poverty habits to some degree. And I've told the story of my parents being raised next to people who were, honestly, were donated a chicken coop because they didn't have a house. Homelessness was so bad in Nixon, Texas that it wasn't, I mean, there were literally people laying out dying of cancer. I mean, it was that bad. And these were families that didn't have anything. But we do that too. And we do that by hoarding food, by keeping leftovers and junk. How many times have you blown your fast, or else thought about it, or else delayed going on your OMAD fast because you had good food you wanted to get rid of in your refrigerator and you didn't want to see it go to waste? Be honest. Probably a few times. Probably a lot of times, maybe. How many times have you said, I can't throw this away, this is precious. Someone in the world needs this. And instead of making a trip to donate it to a local charity like you should have done, you instead went on a binge. Scrounging and hoarding and binging. Those are the two things that remain in American lives of all racial and economic demographics, economic ranks. You can look and you'll see poor people do this, of course, to bury their sorrows. A lot of people do drugs for the same reason. But also the rich. And some of these people out here are doing quite well. But I look back at my poor days and I realized I didn't care. We have better education now where people know to care. And yet still they become victims of poverty thinking. This food is so valuable, I might as well eat it. But I've got to go fasting, but this is too tempting for me, so I'm going to keep it. And I'm going to eat it all. And then I'll get rid of it. Then I'll be ready. That's an economic thinker. And economic thinkers, people who have high economic graphs. I'd cover this in my personal elite consultations, if you're interested. There are people that say, what's in it for me? What's in it for me? I have this food. I don't want to see it go to waste, so I'm going to keep it. I'm going to hang on to it. Well, the problem with that is there's always food around. And you end up never making progress or as much as you should because you're always trying to maximize and rationalize your environment. And you are the worst one, you and the scared communicators. High anger communicators and high analytical scared communicators have problems losing weight because they constantly rethink their decisions. See, this is where I have an advantage. This is why people say, I want to be Joe. I want to be Joe. I want to be like Joe. You can't be like Joe because you're probably not as stubborn as me or as angry as me. You can be successful. So I can say, screw it, I'm going to do it. Even if I end up throwing away food, even if I end up letting stuff go to waste. But that can help in our society. Remember the premise that this channel was based upon, and I have tried to ensure that no one watching this channel forgets it. Society has literally too much food. Drop the poverty habits because there's plenty of food, and for the foreseeable future, there will be plenty of food. It is such an epidemic right now. If you can be a little bit stubborn and a little bit less economical, you can let food go. If you're too economical, you can't do that. That's why it's so hard for some of you to start fasting, because you have a dinner with your boss and you want to eat with your boss. You have a function to go to and you don't want to look like the odd one out. So what do? You try to organize everything to where it's perfect. I'm going to start fasting here once I get rid of all of this junk food we bought. And then I'm going to have this really important meeting coming up, and then I'll have time to dedicate to fasting. Life will never permit that. And that's poverty thinking. And I can see this in my parents. They still, and I love my parents, they're great people, they still hold on to stuff. They'll take stuff. It's the craziest thing. And my mind goes back to their parents when they were alive, and then my great-grandparents, which have been dead a long time. They collected teeth. They collected everything in their house when we went to clean it out when they died. They had all sorts of stuff because their mind said, we're going to need this for later. It's no different than watching a squirrel bury a nut in your yard. It works in the wild. It doesn't work anymore. Do you see now why people are dying? Do you see now why people are going to the doctor with deep vein thrombosis and liver failure and kidney failure? I have a buddy who watches this channel. Maybe he'll comment. His kidneys are failing because he's overdone it on the booze, and he can't turn off that side of his brain that says, I need to maximize my efforts. I need to maximize my investment. So what does he do every time he tries to go out to eat? He does what I used to do. He says, I need to go to a buffet because that's a better value for my dollar. So how many plates is he going to have to make that $13.95 Chinese buffet work? He's going to have 6 or 5. And of course, that's carbs, fats, and proteins together. So it's not even good lean food. It's not low fat, or it's not organically protein-based meat to where you can go either way. You can go high carb or high protein. It's okay. But if your food choices are stupid, and you have a badly warped poverty habit ingrained into you, you're going to be hugely obese. And this guy is kind of borderline. But look at how many people, they either don't know these things or they don't care. Poverty habits are ingrained in all of us. Do it right now. When you're done watching this, go into your kitchen and look at the foods that are old, those little foods you've been keeping around because you say, well, I could get another couple days out of it. Maybe it's not gone bad yet. That's a poverty habit. Get rid of the food. Did you buy something that you know you're not going to be able to control yourself on? Did you buy a bunch of candy? Go throw it away. Go give it to kids. Go drop it by your nearest school if you're too economically minded and you can't see it go in the trash. Or if your Catholic grandmother told you, like one of the first people I counseled said her Catholic grandmother told her, it's a sin to throw food away. You can never throw food away. If that's the case, go give it away. Go do it right now. Go load up your car and go do it away. I'm not saying you have to throw away bad foods, quote, bad foods. There are no bad foods. But if to you a food is bad, what are you waiting for? Why are you so of the mindset that food is your master? It's not. More food will grow. It's coming from the earth. We have so much food, our society literally doesn't know what to do with it. Even with much of it being bad, you can control yourself. You can manage yourself, but your thinking is the problem. You are, many of you, being victim to poverty habits. So let this be, what do they say, a public service announcement, public service message. That's why we're seeing all of this overeating. I've got to get the most that I can get in because I'm going to starve. That's why our bodies put away fat. We've known this. That's why it happens. And you've been a victim to it because you're living in this world. And, of course, you're a product of your environment like we all are. So that's it for today.